A Yamaha MT-07 on the showroom floor, sticker price $8,599. Sitting right next to it in your mind is a Toyota Corolla at $23,460. That is a nearly $15,000 difference on day one. And if you stop the math right there, motorcycles win in a landslide. Fuel? Motorcycles sip gas. Insurance? A fraction of what cars cost. Maintenance? 2 wheels instead of 4, fewer parts, simpler systems. It all sounds like the easiest financial decision you will ever make. At least that's what everyone thought. Because when you actually track every single dollar across 5 full years of ownership, the numbers tell a story that is going to surprise a lot of people. And for some of you watching this, it might change what you buy next. So let's build a more complete cost comparison than the simple sticker price argument most people stop at. Let's take real data from AAA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Kelley Blue Book, the EPA, and actual owner-tracked costs from motorcycle forums, and line it all up side by side. Starting with the one category where motorcycles absolutely dominate: the purchase price. In September 2025, Kelley Blue Book reported that the average transaction price for a new car in America hit a record $50,080. That is not a luxury number. That is the average dragged up by trucks, SUVs, and the fact that the cheapest new cars are quietly disappearing from the market. The Mitsubishi Mirage was discontinued in 2024, and the Nissan Versa, which had been the last new car with a sticker price under $20,000, was killed in December 2025. Kelley Blue Book reported that the last sub-$20,000 car was likely sold late in 2025. Realistically, the entry floor for a brand new car is now in the low $20,000 range, with the Hyundai Venue starting around $20,550. Motorcycles live in a completely different universe. Statista's U.S. motorcycle market forecast projects the volume-weighted average new motorcycle price at $11,980 for 2025. But that average includes touring bikes and premium models that push the number up. If you are buying a beginner-friendly or mid-range motorcycle, prices start much lower. A 2025 Kawasaki Ninja 500 starts at $5,299. The Honda CBR 500R was $7,399 for 2025 and actually dropped to $6,399 for 2026, according to Honda's website. A Yamaha MT-07, one of the most popular naked bikes on the road, runs $8,599 per Rider magazine. Those are manufacturers' suggested retail price figures. So destination, freight, setup, and dealer fees will push the real out-the-door price higher. But compared to a Honda Civic LX at $24,250 per Honda Newsroom or a Toyota Corolla LE at $23,460 per Kelley Blue Book, the motorcycle saves you anywhere from $15,000 to $18,000 before you even factor in those extras. Round one goes to the motorcycle, and honestly, it is not even close. But this is where the story takes a turn nobody expected, because from this point forward, the motorcycle's lead starts shrinking, and in some categories, it disappears entirely. Insurance is the second biggest cost of vehicle ownership, and on the surface, motorcycles crush cars here too. ValuePenguin's current analysis puts the national average for full coverage motorcycle insurance at about $33 a month, or roughly $400 a year. Full coverage car insurance, according to Bankrate, currently averages about $2,697 a year. So on paper, you are saving over $2,000 annually just on insurance. And if you are a 35-year-old rider on a Harley Cruiser with a clean record, you might actually pay even less than that average. But here is where it gets interesting. If you are under 25 and you buy a sport bike, your insurance math flips upside down. ValuePenguin found that sport bikes cost more than 3.5 times as much to insure as cruisers. And it is not because the bike costs more to replace. It is because of historical claim data. Sport bike riders crash more often, and the injuries tend to be worse. According to RiderShare's insurance cost data, a 20-year-old on a sport bike in a high-cost state can land at $2,000 to $3,000 or more per year in premiums. ValuePenguin's own data shows that an 18-year-old rider pays an average of $244 per month for full coverage, which works out to nearly $3,000 a year nationally, and Florida rates run higher than that, which means your insurance over 5 years could cost more than the motorcycle itself. That is not a typo, by the way. So insurance? Motorcycles win for cruiser riders and experienced riders over 30. But for young riders on sport bikes in expensive states like Florida, Kentucky, or Michigan, the savings evaporate fast. Progressive's own data shows liability-only policies ranging from about $146 in Pennsylvania to $360 in Delaware. Where you live and what you ride matters more than whether it has 2 wheels or 4. Now let's talk about the cost category that every motorcycle owner brags about: fuel. Harley-Davidson Insurance, citing the U.S. Department of Energy, puts the average motorcycle at about 44 miles per gallon. The EPA 2024 Automotive Trends Report shows the production-weighted combined fuel economy for passenger cars at 36.6 miles per gallon, and the full light-duty fleet, including trucks, at 28 miles per gallon. Small displacement bikes like 300 cubic centimeter models can hit 65 to 75 miles per gallon, and some 125 cubic centimeter bikes push above 90. But leader-class sport bikes ridden hard can dip below 35 miles per gallon, which is actually worse than some modern sedans. Let's run the numbers. At 10,000 miles a year and $3.50 per gallon, a motorcycle averaging 50 miles per gallon costs about $700 in fuel. A car at 28 miles per gallon costs about $1,250. That is a $550 annual savings, or roughly $2,750 over 5 years. Sounds solid, but here is the reality check that changes everything. The Federal Highway Administration 2023 data shows average motorcycle mileage at just 2,121 miles per year. And a VOOM insurance survey found that nearly half of all motorcycle owners ride fewer than 1,000 miles annually. At actual average motorcycle mileage, your annual fuel savings compared to driving a car that same distance drop to somewhere between $100 and $300 a year, and you are still putting 12,000 to 15,000 miles on the car for everything else. The fuel advantage is real, but it is a lot smaller than the internet wants you to believe. All right, so here is where things get really interesting, because maintenance is the category where motorcycles are supposed to be cheap and simple. Fewer parts, smaller everything, should be easy, except it is not. And this is the part that catches most new riders completely off guard. Start with tires. Car tires typically last 50,000 miles or more. A decent set costs $400 to $600. Motorcycle tires, depending on the type and your riding style, last anywhere from 3,000 to 15,000 miles. Sport tires on an aggressive rider can wear out in 2,500 miles. A set of motorcycle tires plus labor runs about $300 to $400 per rider share and Dunlop pricing data. If you are riding 10,000 miles a year on sport tires, you could go through 3 or 4 sets in a single year. That is over $1,000 annually just on rubber. Then there are the motorcycle-specific maintenance items that cars simply do not have. Chain and sprocket replacement every 15,000 to 20,000 miles costs $150 to $400, according to Eagle Leather. Valve adjustments, which many motorcycles require every 15,000 to 30,000 miles, can cost anywhere from $300 on a Japanese twin to over $1,000 on European bikes. An MV Agusta owner documented a dealer quote of $1,148.74 for a valve adjustment on the MV Agusta Form. A KTM 390 owner on the KTM Duke 390 Form reported roughly $1,000 for the same job. And it adds up fast. Annual motorcycle maintenance for an average rider doing 5,000 to 10,000 miles runs $500 to $2,500 per year, according to Eagle Leather and Total Motorcycle. Those numbers are heavily sport bike weighted though. Cruiser and standard riders doing lower annual miles often see maintenance costs closer to $400 to $1,000 a year. AAA's 2025 study shows that maintenance, tires, repairs, fuel, and every other ownership cost combine to make the average new car cost over $11,500 per year. The key point is not that cars are cheap to maintain. They are not. But motorcycle maintenance is not automatically cheaper once tires, chains, valve checks, and labor are included. A real-world owner on the Bay Area Riders Forum tracked every single cost on his Kawasaki ZX-10R over 4 years and 14,715 miles. His net cost after resale came out to 66 cents per mile. That is right in the range of AAA's medium SUV figure, so much for two wheels being half the cost. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything about long-term ownership math. Depreciation is the single biggest cost of owning any vehicle, and it is the one most people forget to calculate. NHTSA's 2025 Your Driving Cost Study puts average new car depreciation at $4,334 per year. Over 5 years, that is roughly $21,670. For motorcycles, the typical depreciation curve drops 20 to 25% in year 1, and then about 10 to 15% annually after that, with the curve flattening after year 3. By year 5, most mainstream new motorcycles have lost about half their value according to My Depreciation and Motorcycle Habit. But there is a fascinating exception. Harley-Davidson cruisers hold their value unusually well for motorcycles, sometimes retaining around 50 to 70% after 5 years depending on the model. That puts them much closer to strong resale cars like the Toyota Corolla than most motorcycles, but it does not necessarily beat them. A Toyota Corolla retains about 72.6% of its value after 5 years according to IC-Car's analysis of over 15 million vehicles. A Corolla starting at $23,460 would be worth around $16,636 at the 5-year mark. A typical Softail at 60 to 70% retention is close, but the Corolla still edges it out. Where Harleys really shine is compared to other motorcycles. A Japanese sport bike can lose half its value by year 3. A Harley losing 30 to 40% in that same window is a much better deal. So Harleys depreciate less than most motorcycles. They hold their own against economy cars. And Japanese sport bikes depreciate faster than almost everything on the road. Whoever told you motorcycles hold their value better than cars was probably riding a Harley. And even then, the best retaining cars still come out ahead. Now let's cover the cost that exists exclusively on the motorcycle side of the ledger. Gear. When you buy a car, you sit down and drive. When you buy a motorcycle, you need a helmet, jacket, gloves, boots, and riding pants before you can safely leave the parking lot. That startup gear cost ranges from $500 to $1,500 for entry-level equipment, and $1,500 to $3,000 or more if you want premium safety gear, according to Livall, Revzilla, and multiple gear retailers. A DOT-certified helmet alone starts around $150 for brands like HJC or Bell. A FHWA RF 1400 runs $680. An AGV Pista GP RR costs $1,450. Jackets, gloves, boots, and armored pants add up quickly. Revzilla's full street setup guides typically land between $1,000 and $1,400 for a solid mid-range kit. And gear does not last forever. Helmets should be replaced every 5 years regardless of whether they have taken an impact. Gloves and jackets wear out in 5 to 8 years of regular use. Rain gear, backpacks, and seasonal layers add another $100 to $300. Over 5 years, a serious rider can easily spend $2,000 to $4,000 on gear and replacements. Car drivers spend zero. If you're finding value in this breakdown, consider subscribing. We cover honest motorcycle content every week, and the next part of this comparison is where it gets really uncomfortable. While all of this was happening in our cost calculation, there are a few categories where motorcycles genuinely and measurably save money. Parking is one of them. New York City, San Francisco, Seattle, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. all offer free or designated low-cost motorcycle parking in congested areas. If you commute daily into a dense urban core where monthly car parking runs $100 to $300, your motorcycle saves you potentially $3,000 to $18,000 over 5 years. That is real, significant money for city riders. Registration and taxes also tend to be lower for motorcycles. typically saving $50 to $300 a year, depending on your state. AAA bundles these costs into their overall figures. But now we need to talk about the hidden costs, the ones that do not show up in any comparison chart, but empty your wallet anyway. If you live in a cold climate, your motorcycle sits in a garage or storage unit for 3 to 5 months a year. Indoor storage runs $50 to $150 a month, or $300 to $900 per off-season. You need a battery tender, fuel stabilizer, and winterization supplies, adding another $50 to $150. A quality cover, disc lock, and chain run $200 to $500. The MSF Basic Rider course, which many states require for licensing and which every safety expert recommends, costs $200 to $400. That is a one-time cost, but it is money car drivers never spend. And then there is the cost category that changes the entire calculation for some riders, and it is the one nobody wants to put in a spreadsheet. Safety. NHTSA's 2023 data, the most recent finalized numbers available, recorded 6,335 motorcyclist deaths. That is the highest number reported since at least 1975, when federal record-keeping began. And motorcycles make up only about 3% of all registered vehicles in the US. Per mile traveled, the disparity is staggering. NHTSA data shows a fatality rate of 31.39 motorcyclist deaths per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, compared to 1.13 for car occupants. That is a 28-fold difference. And it is not just fatalities. NHTSA's same 2023 report shows a motorcyclist injury rate of 409 per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, compared to just 88 for passenger car occupants. That is nearly 5 times higher. Combine that with the fatality gap, and the picture is clear. The vehicle that surrounds you with steel, airbags, crumple zones, and seatbelts performs exactly as well as you would expect. The financial impact of a motorcycle crash can be devastating. Thomson Reuters. Jury verdict. Research found the median motorcycle accident verdict at $73,700, with the average verdict much higher at $561,065. The CDC estimates that the lifetime cost of a severe traumatic brain injury exceeds $1 million. I mean, think about that for a second. You could save $10,000 over 5 years by riding a motorcycle instead of driving, and one crash could cost you $73,000 or more in medical bills and lost income. The math is not complicated, it is just uncomfortable. And this brings us to the single most important finding in this entire comparison, the one that flips the whole conversation on its head. Most motorcycle owners still own a car. The Motorcycle Industry Council's 2018 owner survey found that motorcycle-owning households average 1.3 motorcycles each, with a median household income of $62,500. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that 91.6% of American households own at least one vehicle. And FHWA's 2023 data puts average annual motorcycle usage at 2,121 miles. That means the vast majority of motorcycle owners in America are not replacing their car with a motorcycle. They are adding a motorcycle on top of a car they already own, and they continue to drive the other 12 to 15,000 miles per year. This decision seems small at the time. It wasn't. Because when you run the 5-year numbers with this reality included, the total cost picture looks completely different. AAA's 2025. Your driving cost study puts the average annual cost of owning and operating a new vehicle at $11,577. Over 5 years at 15,000 miles per year, that works out to about $57,885. That total includes depreciation, financing, fuel, insurance, maintenance, registration, and taxes. If you replace the car entirely with a motorcycle and ride year-round, a mid-range $10,000 bike costs roughly $17,000 to $30,000 over 5 years. That is a genuine savings of $30,000 or more compared to the car. Riders Share platform data supports ongoing costs in the range of $1,900 to $5,700 per year. But if you own both, which is what the data shows most American riders actually do, you are looking at approximately $70,000 to $80,000 in total transportation costs over 5 years. The motorcycle did not save you money. It added $15,000 to $25,000 to your household expenses. And somehow it gets worse, because that total does not include gear replacements, a potential crash, or the emotional cost of explaining to your partner why you need both a sedan and a naked bike. So does the motorcycle ever actually save money? Yes, but only in specific situations. If you live in Southern California, Florida, Arizona, or anywhere you can ride 300+ days a year and you can genuinely ditch the car entirely, motorcycle-only ownership saves you real money, $30,000 or more over 5 years. But that only works if the motorcycle truly replaces most of the car's mileage, not if it becomes a second vehicle you ride on weekends. If you commute into a dense city and your motorcycle eliminates $100 to $300 a month in parking costs, that savings is legitimate and adds up fast. If you are an experienced rider over 35 with a clean record riding a cruiser, your insurance stays low and your risk profile is dramatically better than the fleet average. And if you buy a Harley-Davidson, your resale value will hold better than almost any other motorcycle on the market. Outside of those specific scenarios, the honest answer is that a motorcycle is not really a financial decision. It is a lifestyle decision that costs money. And that is perfectly fine. Millions of riders know exactly what they are spending and choose to spend it anyway, because the feeling of leaning into a curve on a mountain road at sunrise is worth more than any spreadsheet can calculate. But if someone tells you they bought a motorcycle to save money and they still have a car in the garage, respectfully, the numbers say otherwise. Remember that Yamaha MT-07 we started with? $8,599 on the showroom floor, $15,000 less than a Corolla. That gap felt massive. It felt like a financial no-brainer. 5 years later, after insurance, fuel, tires every few thousand miles, chain maintenance, valve adjustments, a full set of riding gear, and the car you kept because you needed it for groceries and rain and passengers, that $15,000 head start is gone. And for most riders, you ended up spending more total, not less. The motorcycle did not lie to you. The spreadsheet just was not finished yet. If you want to see how these numbers change for electric motorcycles versus electric cars, that video is coming soon. Subscribe so you do not miss it.